we're all hoping that the users don't click, but the reality is that the users usually do click because they're busy, or perhaps they're not the most smart people in the room, and so they click. And so you need to plan for all of those eventualities. So we're going to start from the outside and work our way in, and we'll share with you how Solutions Granted can help support your efforts to keep your clients safe. So the first one we want to talk about is a couple of different services. We have a managed SIM solution that can support all of the main firewall manufacturers. And Michael, I'll let you speak to that in a second and get a bit more technical. And then we also have SOC as a service. So we have a US-based SOC. We do not outsource our SOC anywhere other than in our own property in Virginia. We also have some remote employees, but they are all in the United States, and no outsourced, nothing in India, nothing, whatever. They're all in America, and that's obviously that first layer of defense that we wanted to talk about. So, Michael, can I pass this over to you to kind of dig into this a little bit and maybe share some stories, some instances of what you're seeing when it comes to these types of solutions and the type of threats that they're stopping?
Sure. So I think most importantly is when we start talking about this and we talk about the managed SIM and the SOC as a service, it's the old adage of when the tree falls in the middle of the woods, if no one's there to hear it, does it make a sound? I think logically, scientifically, we can all say, absolutely, it does make a sound. Now prove it. And you can't, because there's no data. There's nothing there that proves what we know. So that goes to when we talk about a managed SIM, when it's coming to the firewalls, when it comes to the domain controllers, when it comes to switches or high value assets, if you don't have log collection, if you don't have a SOC team reviewing, if you don't have somebody looking after and monitoring it, putting 24/7 eyes on glass, can you really tell your customer that they're safe? In theory, you can say that you've done all of these things that align with certain ideas that should take care of them, but that's why banks got robbed. It's why people give up their credentials today, because the mouse gets smarter and the mousetrap has to kind of reinvent itself. So if you're not monitoring it, if you're not, obviously you're managing it, but if you're not monitoring it, you really don't know what you don't know. And I think that is the point of having the managed SIM that is backed with the SOC team, that isn't running this in core business hours. Because I promise you, most breaches don't happen at lunchtime. And most breaches aren't coming from an initiating point here in the United States. They're coming from overseas. And you get enough time between us and them, well, their days are our nights, and our nights are their days. So we have to make sure that the monitoring is there, and we have this ability for you. Now, we may not be subject matter experts on every firewall out there, and anybody that says they are, again, run. There's no way to claim that. What we are subject matter experts in is in taking that data, taking those logs, taking those flows, doing the analysis, and getting to the point of being able to tell you when something truly bad has gone on. And this is where it becomes simple. It's the right team. It is at this point in time, I can't even tell you how many hundreds of millions of events are coming in. Sorry, my cell phone started to kick in, which interrupted my headset. The hundreds of millions of events that we're seeing every day, which creates an awful lot of alert fatigue on you and your teams. The reality is 90% of them are trash, and our systems can get through them incredibly fast. This is where we start to rely on the artificial intelligence and the machine learning and the algorithms to get through the trash as fast as possible, so that we can start getting to the specific things that are really needing to be looked at. And really, when you can get to that 10%, it's only about 1% of that 10% that really needs us to start diving into it, start doing the threat hunting, doing the analysis, trying to figure out what's going on here. And it will be just about that 0.1% that we're going to call you. We're going to tell you there is a problem. Houston, we've got an issue. And I promise you, it's not going to be a sales call. We're not going to want you to buy something else. And please, for everything that you want, make sure you answer that call. Because when we're calling you for that reason, that's the one that you want to listen to.
Yeah, make sure you don't hang up on us too. We've had that happen. So
Yeah, it happens. Or make sure somebody actually, wants to return the call in a timely manner, because these fights start and end very quickly. And we've seen unfortunate events where we have called and called and called and emailed and emailed and emailed. It's 2 a.m. on a Saturday, and we get a reply at 8 or 9 o'clock Monday morning. And unfortunately, at that point in time, we're doing some apologizing that we probably shouldn't do. But the apologies are, I'm sorry, the fight is over. We needed you to respond with us because we had all of the information. We could tell you what to do, but there were certain aspects of this that you had to engage with us. And it just doesn't happen. So these fights are happening very, very quickly today.
and the reality is that when your clients have an incident, have something happen, they're going to want to know the details, and being able to answer that question intelligently and professionally is crucial. I talked to an MSP this morning, not a client of ours yet, and he said, I had a banking client that had an incident, and the MSP didn't even uncover it. An outside party discovered that there was an incident, and I don't have the details necessarily. He didn't have the details, but he's like, well, I just want to go in and just do a scan of some type and certify that everything's fine. And I'm like, oh, hold on, you're starting to, like, you're skating on some pretty thin ice, because he said, and he wanted me to answer the question, what is it that I'm certifying? And I said, oh, the fact that you're asking me that means you are not ready to go in and have that conversation. And you can't, it's like trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube after you've squeezed it out. It can't happen. And so that's where having these type of tools in place proactively, so that if something does happen, you have visibility into what happened, so that you can answer those questions that are probably going to be tough questions, possibly from the client or the client's attorneys or the client's insurance companies. And so having those logs and being able to explain what pieces you had in place to keep them safe, very, very important. So it's a very very affordable solution. And so again, we were mentioning that this is for SonicWall, for WatchGuard, Fortinet,
Palo Alto, Checkpoint, Meraki. We can't cover it all because there's some technologies out there that just don't integrate well. We've tried to play in the Calyptics world. They just don't do things like everybody else. Untangle is a bit difficult as well. But when you look at the mainstream players, like Jennifer was saying, you look at WatchGuard, you look at Fortinet, you look at Meraki, you look at Cisco, you look at Palo Alto, you look at SonicWall, and I'm not leaving anybody out through a level of disrespect, but those are the major players in the firewall space out there, be it physical and virtual. Those are the things that we can cover. And this isn't just about monitoring the firewall at that 97.95. We know and understand that we need to see more than just the front door. And so what we did is to bundle in a domain controller with this as well, because it gives us so much valuable information that now we're comparing what's happening on the back end between DNS and DHCP and the Windows logs, and then what we're gathering at the firewall level, that we start to get a more holistic view of not the entirety of the environment, but it is an amazing starting point for any organization, because just to monitor the firewall without Active Directory and some of the things that are going on in those Windows servers is just half of a picture, and it doesn't allow our analysts to know and understand enough. So for that 97.95, you're getting both of those components on a per month basis.
perfect. Okay, so I'm not seeing questions come in. I think I'm just going to keep blazing a trail, and if I see any questions pop up, then I'll pause. But I'm going to continue with the next solution that we want to talk about, which is cloud security. So obviously, maybe 5, 6 years ago, there was this mass exodus to the cloud, and then really in the last 2 years or so, to maybe 3 years, we've seen a huge increase in cloud email. And so now we've got email in the cloud, we've got Teams and Box and Dropbox and all of these things that all of a sudden we need to somehow protect, even though even though it's not within the four walls of our company, that as we think about it. And then obviously, as we start to look at people working remotely, which we saw a tremendous increase of that in the February, March, April timeframe. Obviously, then there's even more need to provide solutions and protection for all of the components that are in the cloud. Now, I did just see the chat start flashing. So, okay, looks like Michael answered that. Okay, perfect. Awesome. So let me expand that out just so I can kind of take a look at that. Okay, perfect. So let's talk cloud. The reality is that this is a fairly new type of thing that you need to start to think about, because phishing is huge. We all know that phishing and spear phishing dramatically on the uprise. It already was growing, and then we had COVID step up, and we had all these COVID craziness and COVID emails and things like that. But the reality is that specific to just phishing in general, if we just think in the normal world, almost every threat we see is because of phishing. And while Microsoft's built-in protection is decent at stopping spam, it is not good at stopping phishing. That's just not what it's designed to do. So obviously that creates an issue, because if the email gets through and it is not stopped and your user clicks on it, which Murphy's Law, they will, now you have a security incident on your hands. And then, as I mentioned, with COVID, that just the increase, the sheer numbers in terms of how many new phishing emails came out during the COVID-19 outbreak, and click here to see new symptoms, and click here to find new treatments, and all of these emails, because the criminals always play on urgency. There's always there's an emotional play to what they are doing. There's always urgency. It's usually to solve a pretty pressing problem. And when your users are already in a bit of a state of panic, if you will, a little bit of fear, and then you add in, oh, they're working from their dining room table. They don't have their 2 or 3 or 6 monitors. They're working on a tiny little laptop, and their kid is behind them on a virtual screen, you're doing virtual TV, and the dog is barking, and they're still expected to do their job, and their inbox is filling up. They're that much more likely to click on a phishing email. So obviously we've got this perfect storm, and then you add in things like protecting Dropbox and OneDrive, and making sure that data is not getting compromised and leaving that proverbial building, even though there is no more building anymore. And so we have very, very affordable cloud security options that are either $1, $2, $3 per month per mailbox. So it just depends. Do you simply want something that's going to provide basic protection, or does your client want to protect Box and Teams and things like that? And you can mix and match. So if you have a client that needs all in, they're very serious about their data, you can certainly service those clients. And then if you have others that they are serious about security, but they don't have anything really in Box, maybe they've locked that down and they have a server on site that they're VPNing into or something like that, then you can go with a less expensive option for those clients. And I probably should have mentioned early on, everything that we do is consumption based. So we don't have anything where you have to buy a large block of licenses. Everything we're talking about today, you can literally spin up for a single endpoint or a single client, and gradually ramp up to where you need to ramp up to.
So Jennifer, I think there's one thing I'd like to cover here. And so we were talking about the firewall, we're talking about the perimeter, we're talking about that SIEM and SOC as a service, but what the world has experienced over the last 6 months, and thank goodness for Microsoft and thanks goodness for Google that they were prepared for this, is the exponential growth of the corporate brick and mortar disappearing. Bad for the property managers, bad for the people that own these properties. But what businesses have realized and have been very reluctant to realize until this point is they had to have people in the office, they had to have everybody there. But now people are realizing they can actually work. So they're divesting themselves of their architecture. They're divesting themselves of their physical infrastructure. And that means the firewalls are starting to go away. Robert Herjavec, who owns one of the top 5 managed security services providers globally in the world, it's called the Herjavec Group. He said that in the next 24 months, they will get rid of 50% of their corporate office space. Google is saying the same thing. Facebook is saying the same thing. So these people, these big monsters are getting out there, and the small businesses, unless they're manufacturing or places where you just have to have a physical location. But a lot of businesses are realizing, hey, look, I don't need this anymore. And because they can take their file server and put it on OneDrive or Box or Citrix File, they can get rid of their domain controllers and go to Azure AD. That Office in a box with Microsoft or G Suite is now a real thing. So, we were talking about the firewall and the SIM, and that's monitoring one point of entrance to the world and everybody coming at you. What now becomes even more important is figuring out, how do you monitor Office 365? Because now you've got everybody in the world coming from all kinds of points of entrance. And can you see it? Can you monitor it? Can anything be done about that? And the answer is yes. We have that ability to help transition the idea for your customers that are getting rid of their firewalls because they're getting rid of their corporate locations and they've taken everything and put it in a SaaS offering. We can monitor it. And it's about $1 per user per month. So we can ingest all of those Office 365s. We can tell you when somebody's done external forwarding to a domain. We can tell you when somebody's turned off two-factor authentication. We can tell you when you've come out of compliance and something is being done, or somebody's elevated privileges in Office 365 and given themselves admin rights. These are all indicators of compromise. These are ideas of common things that we see that start that breach. We can see them, we can identify them, we can alert you to them, and they can be stopped in a timely manner. And it's relatively inexpensive. So, take your 30-person organization, take your 50-person organization, legitimately $50 for 50 people from me to you. Even if you double that, triple that, it's $100 a month, $150 a month. And those are really healthy margins. And it's a very simple cost per seat methodology that will bring them an efficacy that is unheard of yet today. And I think in the next 12 to 18 months, what we're about to experience will become the norm. And it'll be the norm for the rest of my life and probably everybody else's as we see it today, and probably even for our children.
And the one thing we did not mention is that this is not a secure email gateway. This is basically an API. So you spin it up inside of about 15 minutes. That's the one thing that we are hearing consistently from MSPs, is just how insanely fast it is to get it up and running, to get it deployed, and it's just done. And then it just works. So gone are the days of spinning up a gateway and waiting, I don't know, 5 days or whatever it is to let everything populate. And then you've got the protection. So that's an important piece as well. All right, I'm not seeing any other chat messages coming in. I'll pause for just a second before we go to the next solution, just in case anyone's typing frantically. If not, I will continue and I'll keep an eye on that chat as well. All right, so we get to next generation endpoint protection. Obviously, gone are the days where you can rely on something like a off-the-shelf antivirus. I won't even mention brands because it doesn't really matter if you're not using one of the big four. If you're not using a Cylance, CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, Carbon Black, then you are using an inferior product. These are the 4 leaders in the space. It's a huge threat vector in terms of executing zero-day attacks and script-based attacks and malware, ransomware, like a lot of the craziness that you hear in the news. That's what an endpoint protection solution is protecting against. Obviously, we love Cylance. I am not going to do it justice, so I'm going to hand this back to Michael in a second, but we use Cylance. Sometimes we get people asking us to compare and contrast some of these solutions. The biggest one that we hear is, hey, can you compare and contrast Cylance to SentinelOne? And it feels a little bit unnecessary because they are both ranked at like a 99.9% efficacy rating, or how effective are they at stopping a threat. So can we quibble over the 0.1%? Oh, we did better here and they did better here. And oh, Sentinel-1 has a ransomware rollback. Oh, but Cylance doesn't need it because ransomware doesn't get through. And so are there slight differences between the solutions? Sure, but you're comparing two best in breed solutions. One of the best things about Cylance in terms of comparing it specifically to Sentinel-1 is that if you want a managed solution, you have to go with a solution that's costing, $7 a month, $10 a month, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little less, depending on volume. And with Cylance, you're looking at $263 for our fully managed solution, which we'll talk about what that includes with our SOC and deployment and things like that. But I wanted to touch on the pricing. I don't always advocate that you make a pricing decision, but of late, the price has started to become more of a concern, because especially when you look at your existing client base and you start to layer on these additional solutions, if you've already gone back to your clients and said, I want to provide advanced cybersecurity, and on top of my $100 per month for managed services, I'm going to charge you $50, I'm making up numbers, and they signed a contract and said, okay, that's great. For $150, you're now doing IT and managed security. And now you start to layer in all of these other pieces that are needed. It can be difficult to go back and resell your client on these new solutions every single quarter when they just signed a new contract with you. And so I'm not saying buy Cylance because it's inexpensive. I'm saying buy Cylance because it is comparable to one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive, endpoint solution that's available to the channel today, and it happens to be less expensive. So I hope that makes sense. Michael, I want to back up. Explain why you have fallen in love with Cylance and a little bit of that journey, because I think that's helpful to understand how you are vetting solutions, and a little bit of that conversation.
Sure. So the thing that I hated more than anything 5 or 6 years ago was all endpoints suck. Hate them, couldn't stand them. I don't care what it was. I don't care if it's Trend or ESET or Webroot or Viper or Symantec or McAfee. They all suck for the same reason, because they're all signature based, which means it's a perfect match. And I can't match against you until you've come first. So I can't get the antivirus until the virus has come out. And it's a one-to-one. It's like the checkpoint that you're going through. If the picture on the ID matches exactly the picture of the person that they're looking for, they're going to get you. But if you do enough to alter your appearance, you might get through. And that is where I fell in love with the next gen AV space. And back then, 5, 6 years ago, for me, it was really looking at Sentinel-1 and Cylance, trying to understand. And I love the pedigree that Cylance came to the table with. We're talking about Stuart McClure, who was the founder of Cylance, who was the CISO at McAfee. And he had this idea about 10 or 15 years ago, how this industry could be revolutionized. And McAfee had cut him loose to go find it, figure it out, build it, start exploring it. And then we all know that Intel and McAfee got in bed and they squashed the idea because they thought they were going to fix it a different way. Well, Stuart left. And what he did is he went out and hired a bunch of PhD mathematicians. Those were his first hires. And they started working algorithms, and they started working machine learning to figure out, could they predict? Could they prevent? And I will tell you, when I first heard of it, it was like the old Super Bowl commercial of the IBM Magic Pixie Dust. Just sprinkle it on and it'll heal the network. Okay, well, that was crap. That really wasn't going to work. But the reality is that when you start looking at it and you start understanding, you take the purest of the pure evil that you can find and you put it in the middle of the circle, and then you start expanding that circle and you build out these things called centroids. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to say, hey, if I know that the look and feel of this file is pure evil, and I know that the look and feel of this file is pure evil, well, now I take the characteristics of those two and I bring them together. I don't have to know what the new thing looks like, because I could predict that this one was bad and this one was bad. And now the mash of the two is equally as bad, if not worse. And I'm going to call it as it is. And that's how the machine learning algorithms and the AI and the ML started. in the endpoint space. What really sealed it for us was the management portal. There was already a management portal. We already had it. SentinelOne didn't have it at the moment. Now, SentinelOne has a beautiful management portal at the moment. They've got their multi-tenancy. They've got all of this. What I tell people all the time, Babe Ruth didn't hit the home runs because of the bat. He was the operator. He was the genius. He was the talent. Maybe Babe Ruth's too old for some people on the phone, so let's make it Alex Rodriguez. Let's make it, whatever, Alex Ovechkin if you're a hockey fan, because I'm going to go with that one. Let's go. It's not the sticks. It's not the balls. It's not the skates. It's not the gloves. It's not the car. It is the person behind the wheel that's doing all of the work. And that's what makes us superior to what you're going to find out there. Because we are focused on the SMB space and taking care of MSPs, because I took a playbook from my former military days. And it was when they were building out the operation teams and they were building them out and they said, okay, we are going to bring a team of 8 warriors together. And we're going to give you each an individual job, but you will all know enough about each other's job, but your job is your job. If you are the communicator, you're the communicator. If you're the weapons expert, you're going to be the weapons expert or the language expert or the demolitions or whatever that may be. So we decided to do the same thing. We are going to take this product. We're going to train with this product. We're going to know this product. We're going to learn this product. We're going to breathe this product. So when the bad day comes and Corey Clark, who is our director of threat intelligence, gets woken up by the SOC team at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, he can be groggy. He can be tired. He could have just gotten 30 minutes worth of sleep because it's so ingrained in him and his team. Their responses are going to be accurate, swift, intelligent, and to the point. And it's going to take care of your customer's problem, helping you help them. That is why we have fallen in love with this product. And we are the largest MSSP in the world that they have. So it gives us an awful lot of power, and I will call it the tail wagging the dog. We get to push them in ways that most people will not get to push them. And it works.
There we go. I was muted. Okay, so once again, I do not see any questions coming in about that or comments, so I'm going to continue. And I'm going to continue with, I believe this is the last thing that we're going to talk about. And it's not the fun one, and we're not going to get into a whole lot of details here. But as I mentioned early on, your goal is to have as many layers in place. Your goal is to stop as many threats as you can, but you can never stop 100% of the threats. And hopefully you're not promising that to your clients. Hopefully you're not labeling your solution bulletproof security, because there just is not such a thing as bulletproof security. Security is always reactionary. The bad guys are always finding clever, crafty, crazy ways to get around the protections we have in place, no matter how many layers you have in place. So that's why we want you to at least be aware that Solutions Granted includes incident response as one of our services. So that's not something that you need to engage us with until there is a need for it. Just have it in your back pocket, because when you do have that very bad day and you have a client or a prospect asking you to do incident response work where you're digging in to find out what went wrong, and more importantly, how do we fix it the next time so it doesn't happen, then reach out to us. We are happy to have that conversation around incident response. As you can imagine, it's a pretty in-depth conversation. And we'll probably start with the question, what is it you're trying to accomplish? What is it that your client or your prospect is asking for? And then we'll discuss how that works and how long it's going to take and how many team members we need to pull in, and just have a very candid conversation with you. It's not something we talk about a whole lot, because the ideal is that you put these protective pieces in place and that you'll never need the incident response options. But the interesting thing is that the more you position yourself as a cybersecurity expert in your community by servicing your existing clients, adding additional prospects, and having them become the net new logo, your reputation will spread. And it is inevitable that your phone is going to ring for a company you've never heard of before, and they're going to say, hey, your client told me to call you. I've got a security incident. Can you help? And your answer is, let me get some details. Let me talk to Solutions Granted, but yeah, probably we can help.
And Jennifer, let me add one thing.
Yes.
So This IR world, this compromise assessment world is getting harder. And it's getting harder because it's happening so fast. And the insurance companies are getting overwhelmed. The big IR firms are getting overwhelmed. And some of them won't step down into areas that you may want them to go. Um, we've done an IR for a 4-person shop. We'll be more than happy to step down and do that. And it's not going to be astronomical pricing. You bring in a crawl that is probably one of the biggest IR firms out there doing work for the insurance company, or you bring in a Grant Thornton, or you bring in a Checkpoint. We will do this and we will do it well. And we will price it down to where a 4-person organization can actually afford the IR response. So it's going to be something that you'll be able to price them into and it won't price them out. And if you're already in that endpoint protection at 263, we already have the majority of the tools in place. And because we have our active ready response technology built into that pricing, if you have a customer that gets a compromise, who knows what it may be? Maybe you didn't have a patch in place. Maybe you had a forward-facing RDS server. Maybe you had weak password management policies, a plethora of different things. We can instigate, I'm sorry, not instigate, we can institute. We can instigate a lot of things, but we can institute a network lockdown on every single host, and it might take us all of 3 to 5 minutes to isolate every single machine where we still maintain command and control. So whatever's happening, whatever lateral movement might be there, it gets squashed immediately. So we have these response capabilities, and in that pricing, we can start to lock things down. I don't want to call it instantly because then that becomes different story that people have different expectations. Well, instantly meant to them that within 5 seconds of me telling you it's done. It may not be that quick, but I guarantee you that 3 to 5 minutes, that one's easy. And we've already got it there. So we can stop. And what the military refers to that is the golden hour. When there's a battlefield injury, if they can get that trauma victim into medical care within the first hour, there's a high probability that that individual is going to survive. And so we look at that as if we can respond within that first 3 to 5 minutes of an incident starting to happen, we can probably make your survival of your client much better and far cheaper.
Perfect. Okay, so if you want to pull out your phones and scan this QR code, if anything that we talked about today was intriguing, you want to dig in a little bit more. I know for most of those things we include pricing, but what exactly does that include? What does that exclude? What's my responsibility? What's your responsibility? How easy is it to deploy? Oh, wait, does it work on a Windows 98 machine? All of the million questions that you probably have. Scan the QR code. If this comes up later and you don't have, you think, oh, I should have reached out to Solutions Granted and the QR code is not on the screen anymore, you can always email us sales@solutionsgranted.com and we are happy to help.
Hey, Jennifer.
Yes.
So, I think when I was going through the firewall manufacturers that we support, I was trying to pull all the ones off the top of memory. And again, I didn't want to leave anybody out intentionally or because I don't think they're good products or anything, but I think maybe I did leave out one that might be important to the tag members, and that would be WatchGuard. So I apologize, didn't do it for any other reason than, let's say I'm over 50 and my CRS kicks in from time to time.
You didn't say it because I said it. That's why you didn't.
Oh, okay, we're good then. But yes, I do want you guys to know that we can do this with WatchGuards for sure. And WatchGuards like Fortinets, like SonicWalls, between those three are like they're triplets to one another. Their pricing is similar, their speeds and feeds are similar, their capabilities are very similar. So we even have documentation, not for the WatchGuard, but we have a best practices document that was designed that we have implemented on the SonicWall side that we're more than happy to share with our partners, that we can help you get it out of our speak into your speak, where you can actually increase the configurations that you have in place, hardening that perimeter. So you're making it much more difficult and actually taking that box and getting it to the 80th or 90th percentile of what's really capable of doing, which then increases the survivability for your customer as well. So I thought that I forgot about the WatchGuard, Jennifer. I'm glad that you mentioned it. I know that I didn't say it.
Yep.
It's just, you try to remember them all. And again, it's like on the endpoint side, we don't mention Silo. We don't mention Deep Instinct. And they are amazing products. I think Ensilo was acquired by Fortinet, which is now brought into their stack. And there's an amazing MSSP out in California. It's Blockworks with Rob. And they are the equivalent to us on the next gen AV side, but using Deep Instinct. Have a great respect. And it was just like I had this massive respect. It was love-hate with Jay at Carver. Hated going up against him, but loved him for the message that he was given because, man, we were speaking the same talk. So it's, again, no disrespect to anybody's product out there because there's amazing ones out there. It's just hard to mention them all now. There are so many thousands of manufacturers out there that you can't keep up with it anymore.
Awesome. All right. So I saw a question come in, Michael. I'm going to have you answer this one and then we'll kind of tag team. Do we sell to customers direct? And then everybody else chime in with your questions and we'll answer those over the next few minutes.
So the answer is no. Now, I can't tell you that we've never done it because we've been in business for 20 years. 20 years ago, we were a VAR. We were a government contractor, transitioned into an MSP. So yes, we were going direct. 10 years ago, we were still going direct. But about 6 years, so in 2010, we made a decision to get out of the MSP game and get into the security game. And it was probably in 2014, we decided, okay, we're going to take now what we were dabbling in the channel for those first 3 to 4 to 5 years. Now we're going to make this a channel only play. Now, occasionally we will get a manufacturer that comes in, like Cylance came in about 18 months ago and said, hey, we've got a semiconductor manufacturer in Silicon Valley that has about 3,000 endpoints and they want it managed. We need you to partner with us. We went out to our partner community trying to find somebody that felt that they could handle something of that size. We didn't have anybody that felt comfortable going that big. And so we worked in conjunction with Cylance to make sure that the managed offering, the direct team was selling the licenses and we were just providing the threat analytics and monitoring. We don't have a direct selling model. We don't have an engagement. I will even tell you that I am fairly ornery, frustrated, and grumpy when one of our partners says, hey, I just don't want this client anymore, but they still want Cylance. Will you take them? My answer is like, no, thank you. Hell no. Could we just pass on this? We don't need it. We don't want it. We don't want to be in conflict with you ever. It's important to me. And the only way that I can do that is to tell you when it's happening in real time and to thankfully decline the offer. Just not important to us. We don't need it. We don't want it.
All right, so Mike just said, what I like about SentinelOne is that the agent can network quarantine a machine at machine speed. I'm pausing at the network quarantine. I don't know what
I know what he means.
Okay, at machine speed. Let me read it just in case everybody doesn't have the chat up. What I like about SentinelOne is that the agent can network quarantine a machine at machine speed if the SentinelOne agent detects a threat on the machine. Does Cylance have that same capability?
Cylance in and itself has that capability if you have the right rule sets. We also take that a little bit further where, a threat isn't always a threat. And we have heard, and I've seen all the emails where it is hey, we found this, we quarantined this, we stopped it. Oh, we remediated it. It was a false positive. I'm sorry, you don't remediate a false positive. Remediation is when you fix a real problem. You're fixing your mistake upon remediation. False positives are a huge issue within SentinelOne. And thank you, Mike. I think you just confirmed that for me as well. We have far less false positives because we allow the machine learning to do its job on the installation. We're not a lock it down until someone complains technology. And our methodology on deployment is give the machine learning the first 24 hours to learn and baseline the machine. And our false positives, I don't know what our false positive rate is, but I will tell you that we are at near 120,000 endpoints that we're monitoring, managing, and doing something with in the Cylance world on a daily basis right now. And that's growing every day. Our false positive rate is far less than 1%. And I know this because I'd be doing the 800-pound gorilla dance on Corey's desk if it was any higher than that. And I know our partners don't report that problem to us. So yes, we can, and yes, I can lock a machine down. I can take it off the network. I can isolate. I can continue to do my investigative work. And I say mine, I do mean my teams because I'm not really doing it. I'm just a pretty face. They're the smart people. And we all know that's not a true statement either because I'm not the pretty face at all. But yes, we can take care of it and do it very similar to SentinelOne with some differences because we have forensics memory capability based on what we're doing with our active ready response. So we can dig a lot deeper. I can tell you if it's a set of compromised credentials. I can tell you if it's a third-party application vulnerability that's being exploited. I can get a little bit deeper in it than SentinelOne.
Okay. Any other questions?
Guys and girls, this isn't all we do. You know, we want to be respectful of everybody's time. We can't get it all in to one webinar, but we do have vulnerability management capabilities. We've got consulting capabilities. We've got lots of other stuff, breach attack simulations. We can help your customers with their regulatory compliance. We're not going to make them compliant because no one organization makes anybody compliant because their compliance is theirs. But a lot of what we're doing, whether it's your clients looking at the new DoD CMMC or NIST 800-171 or PCI DSS or HIPAA or SOX or GLB or FINRA or any of the other alphabet soups out there, we don't answer it all, but we answer a whole lot of it that helps keep you in the game with your customers and helps them. I mean, I've probably got one of the best, most intelligent compliance officers that I've ever met in our CFO. She spent 20 years of her life playing in that compliance world before she came to work with us. And when an auditor comes in and starts demanding and asking and poking and prodding, she intelligently, quickly, and sweetly tells them to go pound sand and tells them the reasons why they should and why your client is okay. Or she helps them understand and answer the compensating controls that they need to start thinking about. So we have a lot more capabilities than just the 3 or 4 things that we talked about today.
All right, perfect. We will wait another minute or two for any other questions that sneak in. Otherwise, I will hand this back over to the tag team to wrap up.
Hey, Lane. So what? So I don't see any more questions coming in, but Lane, what have you seen from your community? What is their biggest concern? What is their biggest need at the moment?
Well, right now it's the having the the EDR with the SOC backing. I mean, that's the biggest thing right now. So just knowing that there's somebody there 24/7 to take a look at these security threats is right now is our biggest goal. So
and that $2.63, I know we didn't say it specifically, but that is an EDR solution.
Right.
Cylance Protect is your endpoint protection, so the anti-ransomware, antiviral. Your USB mass storage control, script control, and optics is the EDR component of that.
Yep. Yeah, and we've already pulled that. Just so everybody knows, we've already pulled that into our pricing calculator now. And are recommending it as part of the base core product that you're selling to your customers. So at this price point, it makes no sense not to include it. So
I mean, I will tell you what we've seen with like even the PAX 8 partners that are getting SentinelOne. I think that SentinelOne sells it at it's either 225 or 253 or 240 something, somewhere in that realm, but it's completely unmanaged. So I call it the beautiful Walmart transaction. You walked in, you had an amazing transaction. They gave you a beautiful price. You could make money on it. Now go build your house. It's yours. They're not going to do it for you. At 263, we're monitoring, we're configuring, we're auditing. Twice a month, we're going in and we're looking at your configurations and we're even letting you know, hey, you've had a machine offline that's been offline for 30 days. Did you forget to decommission it out of the portal? It doesn't help me, but it helps you with your billing because mistakes happen. We'll even report to that level to make sure that you're not paying for something you're not using.
Yep. No, it's we're very excited. It's a great solution. So that's private to me. Oh, yeah. So Dave Wyman just mentioned, ask it in our base solution. Yeah, Dave, we can take that offline, but basically what we're recommending, obviously a firewall, DNS filtering, security awareness training. This solution here, their EDR solution, spam filtering, and making sure you have backups, both cloud and local. So, and I can, I'll let you guys, Dave, I'll reach out to you privately though. So. All right, I think that's it. We really don't have any more questions. So I hope everybody enjoyed the presentation. If you have questions, feel free to reach out directly to me or Jennifer, and we'll get you taken care of. Also, do want to point out that that $2.63 after your tag rebate becomes $2.50. So really, it is a really inexpensive solution that's fully backed by their 24/7 SOC. So,
And I know that it's a day late and a dollar short, but yesterday was Veterans Day. So any veterans that we have on with us today, I'd like to thank you for your service. As a United States Army Ranger of 9 years, I appreciated my service, and I appreciate all my brothers and sisters that have made that sacrifice to serve our country. Thank you for your service.
all right, thanks, Michael, and thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of your day.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.